Good morning, good morning. It's Wednesday and welcome to Grief Talk. My name is Jennifer Tom,
And I'm Darlene Rempel.
and today is like one of my favorite days, of course, because we have a very special guest who we call a friend too. So you don't want to miss this. Please grab your coffee. We have our coffee, darling. Grab your coffee, come join us, and it's gonna be amazing. So, today we're talking about lessons learned as a funeral director and why I'm excited. It's because I'm also a funeral director and I've got my colleague showing up today to share with you about lessons learned as a funeral director. So, Darlene, are you excited as I am?
I'm excited to hear the stories.
The stories, exactly. And so, as we bring him up, please grab your coffee, join us, invite a friend because there'll be some nuggets. And as we always say, Grief Talk is a place where Darlene and I share about lessons learned through life and loss. And there he is, Mr.
Hi,
Darcy Deering.
hi everyone. Hope you're all doing well today.
Thank you, Darcy. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm
I've
glad to be part of it.
Yes, I've been bragging to my friends. I'm bringing my friend, and I need to say something before we start. As again, Darcy, welcome to our Grief Talk. It's a place where Darlene and I share about lessons learned to life and loss. And today you're going to share with us about lessons learned as a funeral writer. I cannot wait for all the stories. So I just have to say that when I started this career, I was an apprentice, and this Darcy friend, my friend here who is joining us, taught me everything I know. So,
Well,
Darcy, I'm honored and humbled that you could join us at Grief Talk because you are one amazing human being, and that shows up from your work, how you treat families. And so, we're just excited to learn from you, Darcy. Welcome to the show.
thank you very much. I am very proud to be and happy to be here because I've seen this several times, and it's great to be part of it.
Perfect. So as we start, can you believe it's end of November? Christmas is coming soon. Darcy, any stories for us? Because we both know how. Anyway, before we get to Christmas, anyway, Darcy, tell us how did you become a funeral director? What made you choose that career?
Okay, well, I was very young. I was almost 6 years old when I went to my first funeral. It was a friend of mine who had passed away, and I didn't know anything about funerals or anything at all. And I was interested and afraid at the same time. I went to the funeral and it was a weird feeling. I felt really good about the person who had passed away. And that actually changed my life. I thought very young I should become a funeral director. It took me a long time. It took me till I was 25, 26 years old to become a funeral director, but I'm glad I'm there. One of the reasons as well, I was afraid to pass away, and I thought I would struggle with the fear straight on. You know, where else can you learn better than being a funeral director and checking out how the system works, how the body works, how everything works. And once I did get involved, I just, it just enveloped my soul. It was so wonderful to be part of it.
I love that, Darcy. Thank you so much for sharing. Can you believe when you were 6 years old? We have
Mhm.
actually stories about how sometimes people don't like or they avoid talking about death to the children. And you had the opportunity to attend a funeral at 6 years old,
Wow.
and that led you to who you are today. That's amazing.
It is. It is. Um, and I just like how you shared about that good feeling. Like we always associate funerals with bad feelings, and just that we can have, even as children, even as adults, we can have like a good feeling after a funeral. Just that we about the person, about what our relationship with that person. That's amazing.
Well, the funeral makes a day happen, and in most cases that I've ever seen, I know it's a sad event, but the lessons you learn, the stories that you hear from the family members, and the life stuff events that people attend, those are what help heal people in my mind. There's always a little bit of, oh, and I remember when we did this. Like I remember listening to a bunch of children talk about their grandmother and how it was so wonderful that grandma was always there. She made us pies. She took us to events. You know, we got to go to the Stampede with grandma. And those are some of the ideas and thoughts that I enjoy helping people share, is that when death occurs, we have to think of the good times and the memories, because that's what we have, is the memories.
Yeah, it's like reviewing our relationship. And in our grief recovery program, we call it reviewing the relationship. It's going back to the first time you met that person, or the first time that person was in your life, and all the different things that happened. And it's a natural response to death.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree. Every person has a story, and it's a nice thing to learn about them. I mean, when we meet with families, that's how we learn how they're going to work with us, how we should work with them to allow them the best possible experience during that first short time of the passing to the funeral. And hopefully, when we do that with families, we help them along with the grief process.
I love that so much. I love that, Jersey. Thanks for sharing that. Do you have a personal story of grief?
I actually do. One of my, well, my most favorite people, my grandmother. She was so part of my life, and that's one of the biggest stories. Again, she would take me and hold me and make sure that everything was good for me. I lived in Medicine Hat. She lived in Calgary. I took every opportunity I could to go visit grandma, because grandma was like the light of happiness and joy. And she just did everything. And when it was time for her to pass, it was very hard for me. Now, because at that time I was a funeral director, and um, when you're a funeral director, you get involved right away. You don't get a chance to think about grief. You don't get a chance to do anything, because you're going through the procedures of all of the parts of a passing. I remember doing the graveside that I had set up for my grandmother, and then after we were done the graveside, I was standing with my wife, and it was like my whole world collapsed. I literally fell to my knees and thought about all of the things that my grandmother had did. And I think that is a very true part of the grief process, is when it comes on, it's sometimes just a scary factor. You don't even understand part of it. You think, oh, everything's good. And then all of a sudden it just grabs you, and now you have to come to terms with how to deal with it. Of course, you know, as a funeral director, I bellied up, and I went home that night, and I think that I probably cried for hours because I missed my grandmother. And she always told me, don't you ever worry, I'm always going to be there. So on many instances when I'm having a tough time, I actually ask her, you know, can you help me here today? I'm not having a good day. And believe it or not, every now and then I get a sign or something, and it carries on for me.
Wow.
Oh, Darcy, that's a powerful story. For our friends who are just joining us, we have a special guest, Darcy Deering, sharing about lessons learned as a funeral director. And he just shared a powerful story, his personal story about his grandma. You know what is so impactful here, Darcy? Even as funeral directors, we do grieve. Even as funeral directors, we do cry. We do crash, even though. So, and that's why we like to do this, Darcy, because it is a normal reaction, and we actually agree that we are all 100% grievers. And you can find that space to just release and have a good cry. It's a healthy thing.
Mhm.
It absolutely is healthy to cry. I also would say that people do have to understand with funeral directors that when we meet with families, we feel their loss as well. We totally engulf ourselves with them to help understand how to help them. Um, Very often, uh, towards the middle or end of arrangements, I've seen our funeral directors cry, hug, and to me, that's part of the grief process as well, is the support that you can get from everybody.
Mhm.
So, some people say, well, being a funeral director is just a job. It's not a job, it's a calling. You want to help and serve families in the best manner that you can.
I love that. Being a funeral director is just not a job, it's a calling. I 100%. I'm sure Darlene has something to add on that.
Yeah, it's and I think it's the whole staff. So I actually I'm not a funeral director, but I've worked with Jen and I've worked with Darcy, and I just remember one Christmas when I was working with Darcy, and we had quite a few. We had seen lots of families, but it was just everybody was impacted. I was impacted by every family, even if I wasn't exactly with a family. It just impacts loss impacts all of us, and we need a way to deal with that. We need that place. We need to be.
Please hang on. I think it's just the
Yeah, I couldn't hear you folks for a second when
Yeah.
Darlene was talking, so I missed something.
Okay, let's
Okay.
rewind because that was so good.
Oh, I was just sharing about even as staff, as funeral directors, even and I think this is our sphere of influence. So there's like the core people, but then there's actually the influence goes out. So I was just saying, as a staff at a funeral director, I just remember when it's really intense that all the whole staff grieves. The whole staff is impacted by those losses and the families. And we need to support each other. And I just appreciate Darcy because we work together in some intense times, and just again acknowledging that it's a loss for everybody and it impacts us all, and that we all need that safe place where we can go.
I
That
love it.
is that is so true. I mean, even right up to today. Today, we went through our morning meeting with everybody, and I got a personal telephone call, and I was looking at the phone, going, I haven't heard from that person in a long time. His mother had passed away this morning. My heart just dropped for him. Um, and it goes back to thinking, as we spoke earlier, is that all of a sudden all of the memories that I shared with his mother came. How much she made great apple pies, how good she talked to me when we sat together. And today I'm glad that I have my friend, and that the first thing he did was call me to say, you're the only one I know that can help.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Darcy. And as we approach the holidays, Darcy, I feel it's the most challenging time for families and lots of people. Do you have any suggestions of how to cope with the holidays when we are grieving?
I actually do. When I discuss holidays and anniversaries with families and birthdays, those are the hardest days of grief. They are the days that, sometimes the grief jumps up and grabs you. And you kind of have to prepare yourself prior to these days. So on the holiday spirit, let's just say for Christmas, we all have a family dinner. I always encourage people to set out an extra plate and a glass, and during the dinner, have a time of reflection for the person you lost, and to toast them and to prepare yourself knowing that your loved one is absent during these times, but at the same time, they're not absent because they're within your heart. And we all have to share what's within our heart.
I love that so much. I love that. We actually share with our viewers and our friends that, let's say grandma loved cinnamon buns and you make sure we have cinnamon, or they loved gravy. I have never thought of putting an extra plate or an extra glass. So that is really good, Darcy. I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's a good one.
You're welcome. It's all about trying to understand that the pain is the pain, but we can get over the pain together.
Can you tell we're just writing notes? Like we're like, oh my goodness, that's a good one. That's a good one, Darcy. So for our friends out there, give a comment. How do you deal with it? As Darcy shares his lessons, I'm sure we all have a tradition how we do it. Did you have one, darling?
Yeah, we have a Grandpa George. So my husband's father passed away, and we always called him Grandpa George. And he had a favorite drink, and so and I think it's like quite a few years since his passing. But we still, especially at Christmas or especially on holidays, somebody will say, "Oh, let's have a Grandpa George," and so we share that, and then we get to tell a story if somebody doesn't know who Grandpa George was. But I like how you said to review, to take time to reflect, and that's probably what we don't do enough. Is actually take that time to reflect. I know I've been in other situations where there's been a death and nobody will talk about that person, and it's very awkward and it's very hard.
Yeah, and we should ask Darcy, why do you think people avoid to talk about their loved one during these holidays?
I know for me, like you can't judge everybody, but for me, when I talk about my loved ones that have passed, I still keep all of my favorite parts. I remember one time we were playing cards. We played cards all the time, and it was about 2 years after my grandfather passed away, and my grandmother we were playing cards, and she turned around and she slapped me on the arm and she said, "I have never had this much fun in my life." And and I often remember that because again, it was during Christmas and we were sharing great times. She always made me she loved making pies. She always made everybody else a lemon meringue pie, but I didn't like lemon meringue pie. So whenever she made pie, she made me a banana cream pie. So that's what I remember at my holiday times is I miss my banana cream pie.
That's awesome.
I love it. I love it.
I hope that helps.
Yes, for sure, Darcy. And so, as a funeral director, you've shared with us your personal story. You've told us how you deal with the holidays. And you've also shared with us, thank you, we really appreciate that you also grieve and you also break down and you also cry. So I'm just curious, would you tell us how do you, as a funeral director, and you meet so many families and you're there and listen, what do you do for self-care? How do you take care of Darcy?
Oh, Darcy has grown in many ways. I've been in the business for 35 years ish, and my best way to deal with my grief right now is my grandchildren.
Oh,
I take every opportunity I can to go out with my grandchildren. If I'm having a bad week or something, I call one or two of my grandchildren and I take them to a lacrosse game. Last week I took 5 of them and we went to the I Fly for those of you who don't know, I fly. It's like a reverse parachute, and for me, if I'm having a tough time, the amount of joy on my grandchildren's faces makes everything the value to me for what I do.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's amazing. I can relate because I have two little granddaughters. And when my mom was passing away, my granddaughter, I was going back and forth. So we'd spend a day in the hospital or I'd visit my mom and then I'd go to my grandkids. And yeah, there's something special about their smiles and their energy.
The warmth that they give and they don't realize. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And there is nothing like a hug from a grandchild to take all of your bad feelings away. Nothing like it at all. At all.
Thank you. This has been good. I just love that you are sharing real stuff. Like you're as a funeral director and you have found a way to release and you found a way to grieve and you found a way to lighten the grief. So for our viewers who are listening, if you were to share one strategy to lighten the grief, what would that be?
My best strategy for lightening the grief is to prepare yourself. Holidays, anniversaries, birthdays. Prepare yourself before it comes. Know that those dates are coming and they're going to be the hardest that you ever see or deal with. And by preparing yourself prior, I say, if on a birthday or an anniversary you went to a movie, go to a movie. Remember the time you had. If you traveled away to like a place like Banff or something on anniversary, do the same thing. Know that that grief is coming. Know that you want to prepare for it. If you're prepared, then you've already lessened yourself half of the pain because you know. It's so hard for some people not to prepare because those dates are so hard, so special for you.
Yeah.
Mic drop. Thank you. That is so good. You know, we are just so thankful for you to take time out of your busy schedule and sharing with us about lessons learned as a funeral director. And this has been amazing.
Oh, I'm
And
so happy.
right, like it's been amazing. And just, you know, we share about lessons learned through life and loss.
Yes.
And everything you shared today has helped me personally. And I'm sure our friends who are watching.
Yeah.
Good.
It helps. Thank you so much. And just to have community and have somebody to share us and support us. Thank you so much for sharing yourself.
Yeah.
Very, very welcome. I'm glad to be part of this. Totally.
And just to recap, that being a funeral director is not just a job, it's a calling. And that shows with how you serve families. That shows how you show up every day. And that shows how you have showed up on our grief talk and shared about your lessons. So we appreciate you. Keep doing the work you're doing. And thank you again for training me as a little girl to be the funeral director I am.
Okay,
I
you have to
appreciate
take,
you,
you
my
have to
friend.
take me to Chinese food now.
Yes, that's one thing we like to do is food, right? Like seriously, with our work, we love food, we love good times, and just so thrilled. Just before I let you go, I have to share my own personal lesson as a funeral director. This is so personal for this work I've done and how you train me, Mr. Darcy, is that my biggest lesson is I do not take life for granted, and every day is a gift.
Oh.
And this makes me live every day like it's my last day. So I encourage our viewers out there, live today because as they say, if we deal on the past, it's depression. The future is anxiety. However, if we deal in the now, that's what gives us aliveness. And if there's one thing I've learned from being a funeral director is to live in the now. And that's it. So with all my friends out there, I encourage our viewers, our friends, live in the now, because it's a gift that we have now. So until next Wednesday, be ready, because December will be dealing with the holidays and how to lighten our grief during these holidays. Thank you so much for joining us.
Darcy.
And remember, we all have a calling. Go for it.